Do you think Gen Z is soft?
I think they're very, very, very soft.
We spend less time outside.
They've been born almost in front of a computer.
We're always trying to blame other things rather than blaming ourselves.
Why do you think everyone makes fun of Gen Z?
You know, you can see on the old movies we had manners and everything.
TikTok is a daredevil. Our brains are dying.
So today I'm out here and the question I'm asking is, are Gen Z social skills declining?
I teach school and I see the declining. No respect for adults.
Wouldn't you say that's like most middle schoolers though?
No, that's high school and that's a whole generation that's coming up now. No one cares about anybody.
I work for a college. I interact with Gen Z students constantly. I think they're incredibly thoughtful. I think they're incredibly put together. Some of the critiques of Gen Z are actually older generations projecting their own flaws onto the younger folks.
To really characterize it in a more general sense, they're more self-centered. To have social skills, to be gracious, to have poise, and to see the other side, from the other point of view. I think that's really gone downhill.
We spend less time outside. We spend less time talking to other people.
How old are you, by the way?
17.
Definitely Gen Z. How would you define social skills and why is it important?
To talk to people, to maintain conversations.
Get girls.
Get girls, yeah.
That's a social skill right there. Yeah, right there. That's a good one.
That's what good social skills can get you.
Yes, exactly.
They're good at socializing in social media. They are more shy in real life, but I don't think that counts as bad.
If I look at my son, who's 18, his interaction with people is related to games more than anything else.
You think he was farther behind in social skills than when you were at 18?
Yes, they've been, as I said, in front of computers and cell phones and whatever all their life.
They get their feelings hurt really easy. So if they go on social media and they post something and don't get likes, they get their feelings hurt. So now they just isolate themselves. They go on TikTok and that's much easier.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of like online communities, and now obviously with social media, right, you're actually able to probably meet people all around the world that you couldn't. Isn't that also like a form of communication?
Yeah, but there's nothing like face-to-face. If everything becomes virtual, where are we heading?
Because nowadays it feels like everyone's blaming Gen Z for all their problems.
Those people who are 26 and younger tend to be the most challenging to work with.
The worst generation of all time.
A lack of effort and a lack of motivation.
And despite being more connected, we're also lonelier than ever.
Tonight, I'm extra lonely.
The younger you are, the lonelier you might be.
But even though social media is always mentioned as the root of all evil, I knew that was just the surface. And as someone on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial, I wanted to explore from both sides whether Gen Z deserves to be called the worst generation ever. And so is Gen Z really losing social skills, or are we witnessing a redefinition of social interaction? And is all this hate on Gen Z just older generations' fear of being left behind? I guess we gon' see. Do you think Gen Z takes less or more risks compared to your generation?
Why would you want to be an adult earlier in the sense of have a family and stuff? I don't begrudge people in their 20s and early 30s who want to enjoy life. But you have to understand that's a luxury that you have. It's a luxury my parents and their generation did not have.
Probably more risk. There's so many opportunities right now, so many things that they can look at as far as jobs are concerned, as far as travel is concerned.
I'd say less because we're less outside. We don't have as much opportunities to mess up.
What do you mean by that? Less opportunities to mess up?
If you're more inside, right, you won't jump on a shopping cart and do weird stuff on a shopping cart because you're in your house, you're in your bed on your phone, right?
Damn it, Gen Z, you're not helping your case. So now I want to challenge the older generations to at least view Gen Z from a different lens. What unique challenges do you think Gen Z faces that your generation did not?
I think life as a young person is more difficult. The pressures on life, and even with all the technology around you, it has not made your actual life easier.
They've been born almost in front of a computer. They're not used to physical work. That's a big issue.
COVID, it's made people weary of people, and so they face the isolation.
So do you think that Gen Z is living in more of an environment of distrust compared to previous generations?
Absolutely.
And the pandemic of the last 3 years is a better case study than anything of the unique challenge encountered by a rising generation.
Fast-breaking developments in the coronavirus emergency in the U.S.
Stay at home, that is the order tonight.
This is a global pandemic. Stay home.
The disruptions to daily routines during their formative years resulted in 72% of U.S. teens reporting increased loneliness and had a profound impact on the social skills of Gen Z.
I remember crying every night and not knowing what was going on, and I felt so alone.
Remote work and online classes severely limited the opportunity to develop skills like teamwork, as group work became less accessible. And as social isolation limited access to social networks known to be coping mechanisms of stress and anxiety, Gen Z was in higher risk for burnout and further seclusion.
Why am I having so many mental breakdowns? Online school is giving me more stress than regular school did.
But on the other hand, it also led to more opportunities to take initiative. During the pandemic, the youth witnessed a political awakening, utilizing social media to address issues like BLM. And as a result, youth voter turnout increased by 8% compared to 2016.
Voters under 30 have shown increased participation in the last few elections.
Young voters turned out in historic numbers.
And with more time alone, Gen Z also took initiative by using platforms like TikTok to launch careers by reaching millions around the world in minutes. And so despite evidence of social decline, there was a simultaneous rise in digital extrovertedness. As lives shifted more online, there was less face-to-face interactions. But are Gen Z spending way too much time on phones instead of real life? How many hours a day do you spend on your phone?
I think like 10 hours.
Too much, like 5 hours maybe.
So 3 hours and 21 minutes, okay.
5:32.
What do you think will be like a healthy amount of like screen time for anyone?
Less than like 7.
8 hours is like a full-time job.
As long as you're not like obsessed with it, you'll be fine.
Okay. Could you go a week without your phone?
Yes, I definitely could.
And so whether it's good or bad, the prevailing trend is towards an increasingly digital world. And for those seeking what's next in their journey of fulfillment instead of what's next on TikTok, thanks to our sponsor Skillshare, no goal is too small when they take you step by step. When I started this channel 3 years ago, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. But I knew that learning how to edit was crucial to kickstart my creative career. And after wasting hours searching for the best resource, I found what I needed with Skillshare. I discovered this editing class on how to edit on Adobe Premiere Pro and finished it in 2 weeks with Jordy leading me along the way. And fast forward today, and one of the most frequent comments that I get on all my videos is about my editing. But still, not a lot of you may know this, but I'm still not able to do YouTube full time. And so this year, my focus is on taking the business to the next level and diversifying my income by learning the necessary skills to launch and create a successful merch drop. So join me in achieving your goals and be one of the first 1,000 people to join using my special link in description and get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. And so with that, I want to explore further on the impact of these challenges on Gen Z. Have these challenges molded resiliency, or has it nurtured a sense of being sheltered? Do you think Gen Z is soft compared to previous generations?
I'll be diplomatic. I'll say perhaps.
I think they're very, very, very soft. I just feel like because of social media, there's so much more easier things to get your dopamine rush rather than like working towards getting your own dopamine rush.
Why do you think everyone makes fun of Gen Z?
Do we make fun of them or are we disgusted with them?
Our humor is kind of like weird.
Kind of cringe, kind of...
Well, I wouldn't say cringe, but it is weird. I feel like it's easy also to like to point the finger on someone else and say, oh, you're weird and everything.
I think we do because I think it's an ego thing. I think we want to leave a legacy. We want to say, oh, I was part of that created the cars. Or I was that created AI. They say the hardest things is to recognize somebody who's doing better than you.
Maybe they're resentful that they're getting older. I think people just genuinely like to pretend that they were smarter and more thoughtful and more well-rounded when they were a younger person.
You know, you can see on the old movies we had manners and everything. We're in a very polarized, forget about politics, culturally.
We like care a lot more about more stuff like racism, sexism, and boomers are not like open to a lot of those conversations. There's a lot of things in the past that haven't been discussed enough.
For example, the topic of mental health probably wasn't as talked as much in previous generation, but you guys actually handled that, I think, in a better way, or at least it's more out in the open.
Before, there was so many taboos that like cause insecurities and fears in people, and that's important to talk about.
And with 13% of US teens experiencing major depressive episodes and unaliving being the second leading cause of death among teens, there is a clear mental health crisis.
We see rates of depression and anxiety and suicide going up among young people.
Depression has almost become normalized.
But compared to older generations, Gen Z is a lot more proactive. As reported, 37% of Gen Z has sought help from mental health professionals and contributed 42% of all spending on mental health treatment.
Last year, Sydney started a mental health support group for students at her school.
I've done a little bit of EMDR and it's been amazing.
And in line with the preference towards digital options, Gen Z has a 50% higher usage of online therapy apps and even AI. In 2020, the first fully therapeutic AI chatbot, Wobot, was created to provide accessible care to individuals at any time.
Meet Wobot, the friendly little bot who's ready to listen 24/7.
But this exact accessibility also highlighted the concern.
So Doc, do you think this is a good idea?
It certainly can help people who are already in therapy. It's certainly not meant to replace it.
The free nature of the service led users to become overly dependent on its advice, resulting in self-diagnosis and even the application of its strategies to relatives with more severe disorders. So with all that said, why is Gen Z the most depressed generation? Because at first glance, the best advice for anxiety caused by technological isolation or stress from current events is to just close your damn laptop, bro. Considering 91% of Gen Z's main source of stress is related to money, work, and housing, it becomes evident that what used to be more accessible in the past is certainly becoming unattainable. And so while older generations may perceive that Gen Z have it easier, it's important to acknowledge that every generation faces its own unique and relatable challenges. And so with all the talk around social media's impacts, it's worth questioning its validity as the root of all evil.
Kind of like the common rhetoric around Gen Z is that you guys are soft. Do you think social media has had an impact on that?
With social media, like if it's not around the same opinion of the norm, people get mad and people get pissed and they...
How are you with handling like disagreements or like opposite views?
If there's something that truly like bothers me, I guess I'll think about it and see it. Well, is that really an issue with me? If I'm not, then I'm not, and it's like, is there a problem, you know?
Do you think we blame social media too much on problems?
People are so addicted to these things, but they don't actually control their own life. Social media almost does. And so that's why, like, you know, people are softer than ever before today.
I mean, all of us like to be the victim, kind of, you know? We're always trying to blame other things rather than blaming ourselves.
Yeah, because we can go and talk to people if we want.
But of course, there are incentives in life. And if you never had the choice of really interacting with people online, then you would be forced to go out into the real world and try to make meaningful connections. But of course, it's not like a simple equation. There's also multiple factors.
And with Gen Z spending over 5 hours a day in front of screens, they're addicted. But is it accurate to blame technology for declining social skills? On one hand, research has indicated physical effects such as brain shrinkage due to excessive use, which can make information processing more challenging.
Social media use is not harmless, it can actually have a significant negative impact. This can permanently reduce your capacity for concentration.
So it's probably why scrolling on TikTok all day instead of watching my videos is why you're so damn stupid. But looking at the other side, research shows that apart from children who excessively game and go on social media, there is no evidence suggesting poorer face-to-face social skills when compared to children with limited screen exposure. And along those lines, to also consider that sociability is only one aspect of a person's development, and that abilities like resilience and self-awareness are just as important. And especially when we even consider anomalies like Amber Yang, who even surpassed NASA's models for creating an AI program for satellite safety, it serves as evidence that a digital first generation has even greater potential for innovation. And so it's clear that it's not as easy as technology equals bad, because on one hand, technology has empowered Gen Z to communicate without limitations, and on the other hand, that very same technology has isolated them and hindered human contact essential for experiencing empathy, belonging, and love. And as our society continues to embrace the metaverse and AI, the world is only going to become more digital. And so should our definition of social skills be limited to physical interactions, or should our perception of community be reimagined?
Do you think social media has helped create community or destroyed community?
It's a lot harder to find a community in real life. People are a lot more judgmental IRL.
Are you a part of like online communities?
I like a lot of music, and a lot of that is online, and I really love the community online.
2020 brought a lot of people together, and there was a large-scale conversation about what racism looks like, but we can also see political parties are increasingly fringe and increasingly disparate.
TikTok is a daredevil. We've had middle schoolers that go in the bathrooms and go on TikTok and then, oh, we're going to do this. They will tear down bathrooms and things like that. Our brains are dying.
TikTok is kind of making everyone the same. Trends blow up on TikTok, so people start saying like sayings that they see on TikTok. Little opinions kind of infiltrate them.
If you look at my pants and my shoes, that's something that comes from TikTok. People are less unique. Not being unique also creates like a community. Like
that's an interesting thought, yeah, because in a way, like if you're not unique, it's probably easier to create a community, right? So are you a bot?
I might be an NPC. You never know. Like,
wouldn't you say then that like with this new innovations in technology, it's actually maybe even innovating what communication once was?
There's no frontiers. Even if you don't speak their language, you can use translating. Gen Z are probably more open-minded than the kids when I was a young adult or an adolescent.
But as Gen Z enters the real world, has this open-mindedness to opportunities led to success? Because traditionally, schools and workplaces have provided connected, shared experiences for young adults in previous generations. But these organizations no longer serve that purpose for Gen Z. Compared to 40% of baby boomers that have workplace friends, only 24% of Gen Z can say the same.
It's been a long tiring day staring at a screen all day, not being able to meet friends and socialize with people.
The lockdowns that restricted in-person work and education had a significant impact on Gen Z's ability to sustain friends and make new ones.
What do you think the pandemic took from young people?
It took away the spirit of being young.
But can we just blame the lockdowns? Compared to previous generations, the self-reliant nature of technology has made Gen Z more inclined towards individual work and communication.
They're not as in tuned or in need of that social interaction, but the problem with that is you lose that skill.
And when the next generation is more comfortable being alone and remote, it's clear that it'll have an impact on the sense of community. And so I wanted to ask each generation this question.
How many friends do you have?
True friends? Probably 5.
Depending on your definition of friends, it might vary between 1 and 50.
Around like a dozen.
Close friends, I have like 10.
A lot. A couple dozen at least, I'd say.
I don't think I have more than 2 good friends. Real friends.
What would you consider a true friend?
True friend is going to be somebody that's going to give you the things you want to hear and the things you don't want to hear. And that's simply the truth.
Yeah, because I hated this interview. So.
Me too.
I've got a couple of online friends. One that lives in Morocco. My best friend lives in New York.
And you've never met them in person?
I've never met them, but one of my closest friends ever. Online, you can be more open with someone and they understand you more. And I guess that's what makes it a true friendship.
Do you think that you're able to cultivate true friendships through online?
You're only able to know who someone is when you see them interacting, not only with you, but with other people.
Because I guess you can always create a persona online, right?
Exactly.
So whether good or bad, what a community looks like and means has evolved. Today, 51% of Gen Z is friends with someone they only know online and have never met in person. And with popular apps like Bumble BFF and online communities like Facebook and Discord groups, link in description, it's easier than ever to find like-minded people from all over the world. But when only around half of Americans have meaningful in-person interactions on a daily basis, what direction are we headed towards due to this social media-driven era? And as it always has been, it's time we let the older generations fulfill their collective duty to impart their wisdom.
What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with social skills?
Time is your friend. Get older and older, you're a little more confident, a little more assertive. Just it's a function of age and time, if nothing else.
Digest information and stories that are not stuff you're familiar with, engaging with other communities and thinking critically about other communities and just how other people in the world exist.
Eat some mushroom.
Go outside, talk to people, have fun.
Start interviewing people on the street?
That's how you should, yeah. And
say yes to street interviews and also do street interviews.
Yeah.
And so obviously I'm not suggesting that becoming a creator is the solution to your social skills, but rather to consider a different perspective. The pace of change is accelerating, and the traditional approaches to doing things is being reimagined. For years, in-person human interactions have played a role in learning in various activities, but even that's changing. Whether better or worse, gone are the days where daily visits to the newspaper stand or long conversations with colleagues at work was necessary to feel a sense of belonging. And what I realized is that the hate on Gen Z stems from the fear of every generation and their legacy of being left behind and forgotten. But it's only those that embrace change that will start to see the opportunities.
We need to stop treating social media like a luxury item and start thinking about it as something like a tool that we're all going to have our hands on, and we need to know how to use it. We need to know how to think critically when we're engaging with it.
It's for the first time in history, we're living in an era that we can network at scale. And it's exactly how I was able to meet the closest people in my life. From my girlfriend in Brazil that I met through this video, to my business manager in Montreal through that video, to my creative director Dylan in Dallas who reached out after this video, and even Didi in Germany who's editing this. Say what's up, Didi.
What's up?
We're living in an era of unprecedented opportunities. And if previous generations have overcome challenges far more difficult than this one, then why can't the dumb, soft Gen Z figure this one out on their own? Because it's only those who are most comfortable with change that can liberate themselves from the shackles of the past. And that's exactly the mission, to explore the unfamiliar. And with that, thanks to our sponsor Skillshare for helping us explore the first installment in our series on Gen Z. If you want to subscribe and keep watching more, then you'll like this video too.